Welcome to China Insider. I'm David Zhang. Let's talk about the birthday call Putin gave Xi Jinping yesterday. Now, the central idea is to support or not to support. That is the question. And I think you know what I mean. Now, it was perhaps the most unfortunate call Xi Jinping has ever received on his birthday and on his 69th birthday. Why? Because Western media has turned this into 100% confirmation that, well, China is supporting Russia, defeating any doubt we used to have. And this is after months of the Chinese state media telling us that they're not apparently openly on Russia's side, and Putin thinks otherwise. We've been covering how the Xi-Putin relationship since February of this year has been called limitless, and that there is clear support from China to Russia. But at the same time, we know that amid the international pressure and warning to sanction China, there hasn't been any concrete proof that China is supporting Russia militarily. But still, on paper, the relationship between China's Xi and Russia's Putin seems to be rock solid. Everyone can see it. The Chinese government has yet to condemn Russia's invasion on an official level, but people just weren't sure if the relationship will last through the war, especially considering where Xi comes from in this relationship. So let's backtrack a little bit. Back in February, Putin and Xi met in Beijing before the Olympics, and that was before the invasion. And then on 24th or to 25th, right before he actually did it, Xi and Putin called each other again. Back then, Putin's plan was to take Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, in a 3-day blitzkrieg. But since then, the confidence in Putin has deteriorated from the Chinese side. And I say this time the birthday call from Putin to Xi Jinping is not actually on the Chinese president's term. First, let's examine what was said in the new call. So Xi Jinping reiterated support for Russia's security concerns, and according to the Chinese state media CCTV, it says reported saying, quote, China is willing to continue mutual support with Russia on issues related to sovereignty, security, and issues of major concern. So this is a rather vague statement considering the fact that it doesn't reveal anything. It doesn't say anything about firmly supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And in the February call, a similar phrase was actually found there too. Quote, Russia's legitimate security concerns and have repeatedly negated their promises to Russia. However, on Sputnik, this time around Russia's state media, a Kremlin account of the call said the Chinese president noted the, quote, legitimacy of Russia's actions in protecting its fundamental national interests in the face of security challenges created by external forces, end quote. So in fact, this was so significant for them that they had to put it in a giant quote in Mandarin for the Chinese audience, which I cannot find the exact same thing in the English version of the same type of article, which only means that this is somehow just for the Chinese audience, perhaps just for President Xi Jinping. And this makes me wonder, since the Chinese president noted that Russia's legitimacy of the actions in protecting its fundamental national interest is something that he had apparently seen as important, aka approving of the invasion with the excuse to protect Russia's interest, why isn't it mentioned in the Chinese readout? Well, it seems to me that Putin called Xi on his birthday asking Xi Jinping to pay his bills. And this makes this entire situation even more interesting considering what Xi can do and cannot do. Because he is not making public the list of what he will do to support Russia or to help Russia, and therefore, will Xi Jinping pay Putin with money, supplies, or military aid? It's unlikely on a significant scale that would change the course of the war, because China will face sanctions in the case they do so and a rapid breakdown of the international relationships with China, with the West, and not to mention the internal anger toward the invasion and China's support for Russia already. But can Xi Jinping afford not to pay Putin? Well, that would mean the so-called limitless relationship has limits. And we don't see them doing so either because the call was publicly announced right after. And again, we just haven't seen any significant actions on the table. Therefore, what I think is happening, or what is changing, is that Xi Jinping himself is stuck between going forward with helping Russia and risking an even worse relationship with the West, especially Europe, or not to do it, and risk losing Russia. In other words, he's just not doing anything at all. And this is all internal, by the way, too. The CCP ends up being the one that essentially lost more than it can gain. Think about it. What has China gained since supporting Russia? Well, they lost more credibility as a democratic nation in the eyes of the West, and that made the Asian countries as well more alert to what the CCP could be doing to Taiwan or to themselves in Asia. And they also helped to unify Europe in the face of authoritarianism, so they sort of pushed the US too to rethink the Indo-Pacific strategy. And all the while, not actually getting much from Russia in return. Sure, there could be a long-term investment in Russia becoming a vassal state for the Chinese Communist Party, but to do that, you have to offer security and protection in exchange for them becoming a vassal state, right? Now, Putin is here to ask for that protection. In fact, we can also see that the EU-China relationship is at its worst alongside the US-China relationship. Even if Xi Jinping does want to revive the relationship with the West, it's not something that will happen overnight. But Putin is also anxious because it is likely that Xi Jinping had promised to be there for his brother-in-arm back in their in-person meeting in February before the 2022 Winter Olympics. There are also some other contexts as well. For example, the Amur River has separated modern China and Russia. The river itself cuts through almost half of the 2,500 border miles between Russia and China, and it always lacked one thing, which is a bridge for transportation. And Beijing and Moscow feted the launch of a new project, which is a bridge, what the state media calls, on both sides, the first highway bridge over the Amur. Plus one more thing, another rail bridge is coming soon as well. What does that symbolize? It means that China and Russia are likely to continue their bridge for relationship for further development among the two nations, so it's not like Xi Jinping will just suddenly abandon Putin anytime soon. But the call was definitely not on Xi Jinping's terms. What has been done for our understanding of where China stands on Russia and Ukraine is simple. This call has destroyed any second guesses that we have about Xi and Putin not being allies. In fact, this has showed that Xi Jinping will likely to continue support Putin. Just to what degrees, we still don't know. And during the 19th Shangri-La Summit in Singapore this last weekend, General Wei, China's defense minister in name only, said that China supported peace talks and that Beijing had not provided any material to Russia. He said providing weapons and imposing sanctions would not help the situation either. So we know that there's no concrete proof or any evidence so far to suggest that China has provided any weapons to Russia, and it's consistent on the side of the US, Russia, and China. Which means that China did not support Russia to the scale where we think it would change the course of the war. But Putin's call now make it almost impossible, in my opinion, for China to do anything other than to support Russia. To watch our full episode, join us on epochtv. The China threat is real, and our show seeks to expose it. But we cannot do so if big tech is unwilling to spread our words and suppresses our reach. That is why epochtv was created, where truth and freedom from censorship thrive. You will find our full episodes on epochtv as well as investigative documentaries and a variety of programs. Join us now with the link in the description below for just $1. See you there.